Have you ever wondered why God doesn't erase your cracks, but instead chooses to shine through them? See, some of you have been praying for perfection when God has been trying to show you His power through your broken. When the potter takes clay and it breaks, he doesn't throw it away. He gathers the pieces, mixes them with gold and makes something more valuable than before. That's the art of Kintsugi, and it's the reflection of divine grace. Paul said, My strength is made perfect in weakness," because God doesn't anoint the flawless, He anoints the surrendered. And what I'm about to reveal to you about why imperfection makes you powerful could shift your perspective forever. But you must watch this video until the very end, don't skip. There is a quiet miracle in the moment when something breaks. We're often so quick to sweep away the fragments, to hide the evidence of our own fragility, as though being broken disqualifies us from being beautiful. But perhaps the breaking is not a mistake. Perhaps it's the invitation. For in the instant that the vessel cracks, life itself begins to whisper, and now there is space for light to enter. You see, everything in existence, every wave, every star, every human heart is shaped by tension, by release, by a rhythm of being made and remade. The story of creation has always been one of fragments finding form again. When we are shattered by disappointment, by loss, by failure, there's a natural instinct to tighten our grip, to resist the collapse. But the universe, in its strange and sacred wisdom, is never in a hurry to fix what is breaking. It lets it open. It lets the pieces fall where they must, because only through the falling apart can the deeper pattern emerge. This is why the potter's hands do not panic when the clay collapses on the wheel. He simply gathers the remnants, wets them again, and begins anew. The shape that seemed lost was never the point, it was the touch that mattered. We too are clay in motion, constantly pressed, pulled, and reshaped by unseen hands. And so when life cracks us open, we are not ruined, we are revealed. The fracture shows us what's beneath the surface, the tender spaces that perfection could never touch. Think of it, gold cannot flow over something sealed, it needs the break to enter. Just as the art of Kintsugi honors the wound with veins of gold, existence itself honors your imperfections by filling them with wisdom, compassion, and strength you could not have known otherwise. The tragedy is not that we are broken. The tragedy is that we spend our lives pretending not to be. We hide our cracks under polish and performance when those very lines are what make us human, what make us real. Perfection is sterile, it cannot breathe. But brokenness breathes life into the ordinary. It gives depth to our laughter, meaning to our tears, and softness to our strength. When you look closely, even the most radiant beings you admire carry the shimmer of repair. Saints, artists, lovers, they have all been touched by loss. Their power does not come from being untouched by pain, but from being remade by it. They have learned that every break is a birth, every ending a beginning disguised. So when your heart cracks, don't curse the breaking, lean in. Let the pieces fall into the divine rhythm that has always been at work. There's beauty waiting in the fragments, a new wholeness waiting to be formed, not by erasing what was but by illuminating what remained. And when that light finally gleams through your cracks, you'll understand that you were never broken at all, you were simply being opened. There's something profoundly beautiful about the places we try hardest to hide. Those small fractures in our story, the moments that didn't go as planned, the betrayals, the failures, the quiet disappointments we carry like secrets. We often think of them as proof of our inadequacy, the evidence that we've somehow fallen short of what life expected us to be. But what if those very cracks were never meant to shame us? What if they were meant to shine? There's an ancient art that understands this perfectly. In Kintsugi, when a pot is broken, the craftsman does not discard it. Instead, he fills the cracks with liquid gold, and what was once seen as ruined becomes infinitely more precious than before. Its value doesn't lie in being flawless, it lies in having been restored. The gold does not cover the cracks, it illuminates them. It says to the world, this was broken, but look how beautifully it has been healed. We live in a culture that worships perfection. Smooth edges, spotless records, unblemished lives. But perfection is a kind of mask, a glittering armor that hides the truth of our humanity. The irony is, the more we try to appear perfect, the more disconnected we become from the very essence of life. Because life itself is not perfect, it's raw, it's messy, it's holy in its imperfection. The rain doesn't fall evenly, the waves don't crash in rhythm, and the moon, though brilliant, still carries its shadow. When we look at the lives of those who have truly shined with wisdom, there's always gold running through their cracks. They've been through something, they've lost, they've stumbled, they've been reshaped by experience. Their light is not the blinding light of perfection, it's the soft glimmering light that comes from having been broken open and made whole again. That's the kind of light people recognize, because it's real, it carries truth, it carries the understanding that we are all walking each other home through our broken places. You see, the cracks in your life are not signs of failure, they're signs of life. They mean you have risked, you have loved, you have tried, you have lived. Every scar on your heart is a reminder that you showed up when you could have hidden away. That's not weakness, it's courage. And when you stop hiding those scars, when you let the light of awareness and grace shine through them, you become something powerful, something authentic. The divine doesn't look for polished surfaces, it looks for open spaces. Because that's where the gold can flow. That's where love, compassion, and creativity enter. Every great piece of art, every song that moves the soul, every act of kindness, it all comes from that place. The place that has been touched by pain but not defined by it. When you start to see your imperfections not as burdens but as brushstrokes on the canvas of your becoming, everything changes. You no longer waste your energy pretending. You start to live freely, speak honestly, and love deeply. You stop comparing your life to someone else's illusion of perfection and begin to honor the story only you can tell, the story written in gold across your cracks. Think of a piece of Kintsugi pottery sitting in the sun. The gold glints not because it's trying to impress anyone, but simply because that's what gold does, it reflects the light it receives. In the same way, when you accept your imperfections, your spirit becomes reflective. You begin to shine not from striving but from surrendering. You radiate a kind of peace that only comes from making peace with yourself. And perhaps that's what it truly means to be powerful. Not to be unbreakable, but to be unafraid of being seen as broken. Because once you stop hiding your cracks, nothing can be used against you. Once you stop apologizing for your humanity, you become free to embody the divine within it. The gold is not the opposite of the crack, it is born because of it. So let your life tell its story honestly, let it gleam with all the lines of where you've been. Let people see the gold that runs through your pain, your lessons, your rebirths. Because when they do, they won't see someone damaged, they'll see someone transformed. Someone who didn't throw their brokenness away but turned it into beauty. And when the light hits you just right, they'll see it, the glimmer of God's gold flowing through your cracks. And they'll understand that the glory was never in being perfect, but in daring to be real. We spend so much of our lives chasing an illusion called perfection, as though one day, if we just tried hard enough, we'd finally become complete. We polish ourselves, perform for others, measure our worth against impossible standards, and wonder why peace always feels just out of reach. But the truth is, perfection isn't divine, it's mechanical. It belongs to the world of machines, not to the living pulse of the human spirit. Life was never designed to be perfect. It was designed to be purposeful, and those two things could not be further apart. Perfection is rigid, it fears change. Purpose, however, flows. It bends, it adapts, it learns through experience. Look around, nothing in nature strives for perfection. The tree does not compare its branches to the mountain beside it. The ocean does not lament the shape of its waves, everything simply expresses its, and in doing so it fulfills its purpose completely. Yet we humans, with all our intelligence, seem to have forgotten this simple law. We keep trying to smooth the edges that make us unique, forgetting that it's the roughness that gives us texture, that makes us real. The obsession with perfection isolates us. It tells us that we must always be in control, that vulnerability is weakness, that mistakes are sins. But purpose doesn't require control, it requires surrender. It asks us to trust the process, to see even our flaws as part of a larger unfolding. When we pursue perfection, we live from fear, the fear of not being enough. But when we live with purpose, we move from love, the love of becoming. Purpose doesn't demand that you get everything right, it only asks that you show. You might stumble, you might get it wrong, you might break a few times along the way, but that breaking is the rhythm of growth. Every mistake is a teacher, every setback a redirection. The moment you stop trying to be perfect, you begin to listen. You start to notice how life is always guiding you, through whispers, through failures, through chance encounters, toward the person you were meant to become. Think of the pot repaired with gold in Kintsugi. The artist does not try to hide the break. He doesn't sand it smooth or paint it over to pretend it never happened. He honors it. He gives it meaning. That's what purpose does. It transforms the wound into a window. It says, this too belongs, and so instead of striving to erase your flaws, you begin to ask, what is this teaching me? What is this moment trying to make of me? That is when your life starts to carry a quiet brilliance, the kind that doesn't shout, but glows from within. We've been taught that perfection will make us lovable, but it's the opposite. Love, real love, divine love finds its home in imperfection. It's in the trembling voice, the honest apology, the humble beginning. It's in the courage to try again after failing. When you embrace your imperfection, you stop performing and start connecting. You allow people to see you as you are, and in doing so you give them permission to be real too. That's purpose. That's what brings healing to the world, not a flawless performance but an authentic presence. Even the greatest works of art, the most enduring symphonies and timeless stories are filled with mistakes and irregularities. The brush trembles, the note wavers, the word stumbles, and yet it is that very tremor that makes the work alive. Perfection sterilizes the soul, purpose breathes life into it. We were not meant to be marble statues standing untouched in a museum. We were meant to move, to bleed, to laugh, to fall, to rise again. To live with purpose is to participate in the divine dance of becoming. So let the idea of perfection fall away like dust from your shoulders. Let yourself be messy, human, unfinished. You are not a project to be completed. You are a story to be lived. And the beauty of a story is not in its flawless lines, but in its truth. Every twist, every scar, every contradiction adds depth to the tale. The goal was never to arrive at perfection. It was to wake up to purpose, to see that everything, even the broken parts, was guiding you home all along. And when you finally stop chasing perfection, you'll discover something extraordinary. The peace you've been running toward was never at the end of the race. It was in your stride all along. Healing begins the moment you stop trying to fix yourself. That sounds strange, doesn't it? We're taught from the very beginning that when something breaks, we must rush to repair it, to make it look as if it never cracked at all. But there's a deeper rhythm at work in life, a quieter wisdom that whispers, you don't have to hold yourself together. You just have to allow yourself to be held. Surrender is not giving up, it is giving over, to the current that already knows where to carry you. The world has convinced us that healing comes through effort, through striving, through endless self-improvement. We say, I'll be whole when I finally overcome this, when I finally control that, when I finally become enough. But that's not healing, that's resistance dressed up as progress. True restoration doesn't happen by force, it happens through softness. The potter does not wrestle with the clay, he shapes it by listening to it. He feels its moisture, its texture, its rhythm, and in that communion, form emerges. The clay becomes beautiful not because it fights back but because it yields. In the same way, life invites us to yield. To stop pretending we're unbreakable. To stop hiding the pieces we've tried to glue back together in secret. The cracks you've been ashamed of are not a problem to be solved. They're an opening through which grace can enter. When you hold everything tight, your image, your pain, your story, you create no room for the gold to pour in. Surrender is the widening of that space. It's saying, I don't know how this will heal, but I trust that it will. And this kind of surrender is not weakness, it's power. Because it takes great strength to stop fighting the tide. It takes courage to stop pretending and simply be. There's a strange paradox here. When you release your need to control the outcome, life has a way of assembling the pieces in a way you never could. The plan you've been clinging to begins to dissolve, and in its place arises something far more intricate, far more luminous. You can see this in the Kintsugi bowl. The artist doesn't rush to restore it, he waits. The gold must flow slowly, finding its way into every crevice. The repair is deliberate, patient, reverent. There's a humility in that process, a willingness to let beauty emerge in its own time. And that's what healing really is. Not a race, not a project, but a ceremony of becoming. You let life do what it's always been trying to do. make you whole through the very things you thought disqualified you. There's something extraordinary that happens when you stop striving. You start here. You begin to sense the quiet rhythm underneath all your noise, the pulse of existence that's been guiding you all along. You begin to see that your pain was never punishment but invitation. Every heartbreak, every disappointment, every failure, each was trying to teach you how to open, how to let go, how to be remade. And when you finally stop resisting, the lesson becomes clear. Healing was never about returning to what you are, it was about awakening to what you are. The moment you surrender, the moment you unclench your hands, life fills them again. Not always with what you expected, but often with something far more fitting. That's the divine artistry of surrender. It transforms emptiness into possibility. The very cracks that once embarrassed you become channels for light to pass through. The strength that comes after surrender isn't brittle. It's soft, flexible, alive. It bends, but it doesn't break. It's funny how the more we release, the more we gain. The more we try to control, the more fragile we become. The more we trust, the more whole we feel. There's a kind of quiet rebellion in that, a refusal to be defined by striving. You begin to realize that your healing doesn't depend on how much you can do, but on how deeply you can let go. And perhaps that's what restoration has always meant. Not becoming perfect again, but learning how to live beautifully with what remains. The cracks stay, but they no longer hurt. They shine. They tell a story, not of defeat but of divine craftsmanship. So stop trying to force yourself into wholeness. Stop demanding that your healing happen on your timetable. Lay down your need to control and allow yourself to be carried. The hands that shaped you once are still at work. Trust, for it's only when you surrender the illusion of control that the real repair can begin, and the gold can finally find its way in. The most radiant people you will ever meet are rarely the ones who have had it easy. They are the ones who have been cracked open by life and have allowed the light to pour through those openings. There's a certain kind of presence in someone who has suffered and yet chosen to love anyway. You can feel it when they walk into a room. It's not loud, it's not demanding, but it's deeply alive. It carries the quiet authority of someone who has wrestled with their darkness and learned how to make peace with it. That is what real power looks like. Not dominance, not perfection, but the courage to be fully human. When you stop trying to hide your imperfections, something magical begins to happen. You start to really connect with others. Because beneath all our masks and postures, everyone is aching for the same thing, to be seen and loved as they are. And when you dare to show your truth, when you let your cracks be visible, you become a mirror for others who are still trying to glue themselves together in silence. You tell them without words, it's okay, you don't have to be perfect to be worthy. That is how light spreads, not by preaching perfection but by embodying honesty. The beauty of Kintsugi is that it doesn't pretend the break never happened, it honors it. The gold doesn't disguise the fracture, it celebrates it. And so too, when you live from your healed places, you become a living example of redemption. Your life becomes a testament that broken things can still be beautiful, that pain can still give birth to wisdom, and that even the darkest night eventually turns toward dawn. The world doesn't need your perfection, it needs your transformation. The power of your imperfections is that they make you relatable. People do not trust perfection, it feels too distant, too cold, but when they see your scars, they recognize themselves in you. Your vulnerability gives others permission to be real, to breathe, to stop pretending. It's through the honest sharing of your humanity that you become a vessel of divine influence. Because influence doesn't come from standing above others, it comes from standing with them. When you look closely, all true leadership, all deep compassion is born out of brokenness. The healer was once wounded. The teacher once struggled to understand. The guide once felt lost. It's through that journey of descent and return that the gold is forged. You can't speak life into others if you haven't known what it feels like to be lifeless. You can't hold space for someone's pain if you've never faced your own. So don't despise your struggles, they are preparing you to carry something sacred. Every time you rise from what was meant to break you, you carry a new frequency of wisdom. It hums quietly beneath your words, radiates through your actions, and softens your gaze. People may not even know why they're drawn to you, but they'll feel it. They'll feel the resonance of truth. because truth is magnetic and the soul always recognizes it. This is how your imperfections become your ministry, your offering, your contribution to the world's healing. The paradox is beautiful. When you stop trying to be impressive, you become impactful. When you stop trying to be perfect, you become powerful. Your authenticity becomes the doorway through which grace moves. Every crack that once made you feel small becomes a channel for compassion to flow outward. And slowly, without even trying, your life begins to touch up. You start to realize that your purpose was never to look flawless but to shine as you are, cracks, gold and all. Think of the Kintsugi bowl once more, how it gleams softly in the light, how the gold winds through its surface like a map of sacred geography. That's what you become when you embrace your imperfection, a living vessel of resilience, a testament to the art of divine repair. You're not trying to impress the world anymore, you're simply being who you are, and that is enough. So let the gold in your cracks speak for you. Let it tell the world of your journey through breaking and mending, of your courage to be seen. Because when you live from that place of openness, you awaken others to do the same. You become a reminder that wholeness was never about having no cracks, it was about allowing love to shine through them. And when that light finally pours out of you, unforced and unfiltered, it will touch hearts in ways words never could. You'll realize that your imperfections were never your weakness, they were the very doorway through which the divine chose to be seen.